Welcome to the Aligned Powerhouse, the podcast for executive women who are done leading from burnout and ready to rise from alignment. I'm your host, Dr. Brittany McGeehan, licensed psychologist, high performance and mindset coach, and guide for high achieving women who are ready to lead, live, and love without abandoning themselves. Here, we unpack the nervous system truths, mindset shifts, and emotional patterns that drive your leadership so you can build power from the inside out. Let's get into it. All right. Hello. Welcome back. I want to preface today's episode with saying I have a cold, so I hope I am not too sniffly. That being said, if you have ever been told that your emotions are too much, in particular in corporate America, that having feelings are a problem, or if you just have this internalized belief that being emotional makes you less, makes you ineffective, makes you disruptive to the area around you, today's episode is for you. And just to give you a little bit of peek into what we're talking about here, we're talking about Taylor Swift and the absolute elite performer that she is from a high performance standpoint. So we all know that like Taylor Swift vocally, she has honed her craft. She is phenomenal. But I, like the rest of probably the globe, have been watching her documentary where she really lets us into behind the scenes of her era tour. And guys, it was like a masterclass for what high performance actually looks like as a performer. But here's what I saw. This didn't just apply to those who are in some sort of performance arena. It applies across the board to anyone who is in high performance, where their productivity, their output, their lifestyle choices. So I am talking to the 7, 8, 9 figure founders out there. And I'm talking to those who are sitting in the C-suite, like the lifestyle that you have chosen, fallen into, cultivated, has landed you in the top 2% of America, and therefore demands a different level of output and productivity than the person next to you. If you are sitting in this top 2%, you do not have the luxury of hustling harder in order to meet your goals. You do not have the luxury of pushing until you burn out. What you need to be doing is effectively metabolizing your emotions, your energy, and your physical body. You need to have it systematized. This is what Taylor Swift gives us a masterclass in. It was incredible. I started taking notes. I'm such a nerd. But it was phenomenal. I loved seeing the behind the scenes. I loved seeing how her team experiences her. But more than anything, there was this moment where I was like, oh, that is the up and out method to a T. So I think we're going to do a mini series. Honestly, there were several takeaways that I was just like, this is huge. Every woman needs to see this and done in a sequence bodysuit, right? But like, we're really going to dive into this first one. So this first one, we are really addressing the issue that there's a common misconception out there that being emotional means somehow that you are going to be less of a high performance athlete in whatever your arena is. Okay. So let's unpackage this. And at the end, you already know we are going to do a few tactical takeaways. If this is a place, like if you're listening and you're like, ooh, yep, that's me, then like, cool. We are going to do a few tactical tips, takeaways that you can start implementing today to start up leveling your craft. Okay. So let's really get into the issue and what is happening here, because right now, nervous system is such like a sexy topic. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone is like, optimize your nervous system up, like biohacking, all these things, right? It's all about pushing harder, faster. But here's the issue with this is it's coupled with this idea that emotional women lose control and then somehow are less of a person, are somehow less at whatever it is that they're doing. Okay. Their KPIs are going to be impacted. And here is the reality. It is emotional avoidance that actually destabilizes high performance. I'm going to say that again. I want you to write it down. Okay. If you don't have your journals out now is the time to pull out your notebooks and start taking your notes. Okay. Emotional avoidance is what destabilizes high performance. Hear me out. Your nervous system and your body, they are machines. They are built to run. And, whenever you put a certain stimuli in or stimulus in, it is meant to get a certain result. Your nervous system's job at its core is to keep you alive. Okay. This is why it is in charge of helping you breathe without thinking about it. This is the autonomic nervous system. Okay. This is why it allows you to walk or run if you were to see a bear, right? We don't want to have to think about those things. And then there are elements where you can go in and actually control the vehicle, right? So there are moments when your car, I want you to think about, okay, so fun fact, we got a new car recently and it was a big deal at our house because we had been wanting a bigger vehicle. And unfortunately, my husband and I both chose cars that just weren't going to quit until the transmission gave out on his car. And it was a whole thing. Okay. Anyway, we recently got a Kia, shout out. And it's just really great at being a little bit off the ground. And this car not only has safety features for like what happens if you get in a crash, but I wanted to know, how are you going to help me not get in the crash in the first place, right? Like where is that in the machinery? And I will tell you where it is. So there's this really cool feature that if you are backing out, if you are changing lanes, it has sensors all around the car. And so it gives you like a little like buzz if you're about to hit a vehicle. Okay. That preventative measure where I don't have to like, I don't want to say like, I don't have to think about like, I'm going to check my blind spots no matter what. Okay, guys, I'm very clear about that. But like, I have a peace of mind knowing that this thing is going to like buzz me and make a really obnoxious noise if I try to put myself in danger. Okay, this is the autonomic nervous system. I want you to think about this as a child, okay, as a baby, oh my gosh, as a baby, as a newborn. If you are hungry, this is interpreted as a threat to your survival, right? So what happens is babies don't consciously think, ooh, I am hungry, and my mother for this 2 seconds has stepped away from me. I think that I'm going to scream to make her feel like her body has been lit on fire and therefore she will stick a tit in my mouth. Like, no, okay, no. It is an unconsciously produced behavior that happens because hunger is interpreted as threat to survival. And so the nervous system pulls the hatch to get mom's attention, which her biology is constructed in such a way that it is, I need to keep my baby alive. Okay, this is human evolution. This is biology that we are talking about here. It's not this woo thing, and it can be, right? It totally can be, but it's not always. Your nervous system's job is to keep you safe. It is not meant to keep you, it's not meant to keep you regulated. It's not meant to keep you in a healthy position. Like, no, none of that. Okay. Like, your nervous system's job is to keep you safe. And what is safe is what it already knows. Here's the issue. High performing women have grown up in homes, and I've been doing so much like research is a new endeavor, sort of like pool that I'm sticking my foot in recently, and it is so much fun. And I have been conducting these self-trust and leadership surveys over the course of 2025. And what I have seen is that 93% of these women are self-reporting that they grew up in homes where they were experiencing being given attention for what they do, not who they are, and where there was a lack of emotional presence from mom and or dad. 93% of these women. Like, this sort of correlation is insane, okay? Absolutely insane. And these are women who are functioning at the tippy top of this country's biggest companies. Okay, we are talking like Fortune 100 companies is where the majority of these women, the sample pool is coming out of. So therefore, they have been primed to believe that emotional women lose control. And then they are an issue. And then their achievement is going to be threatened. It feels like a threat to who they are because that is the home within their nervous system has been built, right? Where it has been honed, where it's been developed, because your nervous system is developed by a series of, when I do this, this happens. Therefore, it's safe. Or when I cry, mom makes a face and tells me to get a grip, or she starts ignoring me. Therefore, crying is not safe. I need to not cry. Okay. This is how that call and response happens in childhood that we are seeing to explain the data that is coming out of this sample pool for 2025. Okay. So then you end up with this internalized idea, one, that it's going to impact your bottom line, one, that it's going to impact your marriage, or your children are going to see you being not a strong mother, right? And, or if they're not going to do it, if you're not going to have a conscious belief, well, then cool, because you're like, your nervous system is going to. Okay. Your nervous system is going to be like, whoa, we don't do this. We don't feel our feelings. But let me tell you what Taylor taught us. Okay. Guys, I saw this on the documentary and I got so jacked. And my husband was like cracking up because he watches these things with me. He watches like some trash TV with me, but he shows up for the commentary. I'm just going to be really honest. Okay. Like he's not into I also watch Secret Lives of Mormon Wives with my friends every week. It is like a tradition. This is how we, part of how we care for ourselves in this stage of motherhood that we are in. As we're raising babies, we put the babies to bed, then we go watch TV. Okay. So, like my husband will come and he'll join every now and then, and he's not there for the show. He doesn't care about the show. I'll tell you what he is there for. He is there for the commentary, my commentary, because I will bounce off. I do the same thing as I'm like watching the Taylor Swift documentary. I'm like, this is a master class in nervous system regulation, high performance, and how to build an aligned business. I just can't even. But like, so there's this scene, right? There's this scene and she addresses this horrific tragedy that happened at one of her concerts. And she addresses it in the very first episode. And she has this moment where she goes out and she talks to, and they don't show it, right? But she says that she's going to go and meet some of the parents or she's meeting like a few survivors. And then I think she connected with a few of the parents from these little girls, right? Who were stabbed at one of her concerts, is my understanding. Don't like come from me if those facts are not 100% correct. Okay. What I knew was that she was going into an emotional meeting, one where she was showing signs of a legit trauma response, right? And the documentary, she's like shaking and she's anxious and she's like, I'm going to pull it together. So she's very clearly like her nervous system, she's having a response, she's having a reaction. And she talks about this of like, she needs to just go out there and get on with like the next performance. She just needs to do it and get back in the saddle, right? Like she is displaying classic trauma response symptomology. So she goes out, she does whatever she does with this group of people. I'm assuming that she sits and talks with them or connects with them in some way, shape, or form, right? I'm not sure if it happens behind closed doors. And then she comes back into her dressing room, I don't know, her backstage, and she loses it, right? She loses it. She's crying. Her body is sort of shaking. And I was watching this and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the up and out method. Right. For those of you who are not familiar with this framework that I teach my clients, it is knowing when to press the release valve in your nervous system, in your body, how to do it, and then honestly, how to lock it up and keep going, right? And she has this moment where she looks and I think she's talking to her mom, I can't remember. And she is just like, I just need to like get it out. I need to have this moment and then I'm going to pull it together and I'm going to go have a show, right? Because this is the reality that we don't talk about on Instagram. This is the reality that we don't like to address in especially corporate America, but really with these women who are operating in the upper extreme, the ones who are not just building small businesses, but they are building companies, right? Or they are sitting in places of executive leadership and C-suite leadership where you are responsible for not just regulating yourself, but an entire team. There's this really fun, sexy Instagram idea right now on the internet that is you should be able to bring all of yourself to work, or you should be able to take time off when the moon is doing whatever it's doing. And here's the reality, guys, is that if you are operating in a high stakes environment, that is not an option. But the other thing that is not an option is sticking all of your emotions in a box and not addressing it. My shtick with my clients is that you have to know that that box is there, how to get it down, and when to address it and when not to. Taylor Swift beautifully illustrates this idea of knowing when and where to allow this emotion to come out and when to practice containment. And it's beautiful because when you do this, what happens in the nervous system, right? So what happened is she is having a trauma response. She had a tragedy happen at one of her concerts, right? And so think about the internalized beliefs that come out of something like that, right? Like something that she created, especially the Eras tour. Like this tour was about, it was about the fans. It was about her reclaiming her music, yes, and celebrating all of these things. But like when you listen to this documentary, when you see how she crafted this show, the fact that every single person in these huge stadiums had a different view and saw something that only they could see in their seats, like she truly crafted this show for her fans. Right? It was a huge celebration. And like everything about the show was for the fans then to have something horrible happen to these little girls, right? Like the internalized beliefs that can show up there. So not only now potentially I have put these people in danger, but also can you imagine trying to get up then and do another show? The magical thinking that probably she was battling with of if I do this again, is this going to happen again? Right. And if it does, what does that mean about me? What does that mean about my whatever? Right. Like she very clearly is having this belief that is evoking this emotional response, right? Which is probably a continuation of what she felt initially when she found out. And you can see it when she gets off the stage after the show that she puts on, like immediately after that. She walks off stage, she looks at, I don't know, some dude, and she says, "Is there anything bad that had happened that I need to know about?" She's saying it as she's getting in the car and she's moving and all these things, but like you can tell that she in her mind, intellectually, she's like trying to believe that like this isn't going to be the case, right? But there's a very real, genuine fear. And she's letting it run up and out of her body. So she has this thought, she has this experience, she feels the feeling, she knows that it's coming. And then what I do is I tell my clients, I want you to practice putting yourself in a jar. You want like some sort of, and I don't know what hers was, right? But you can see she just like locks it down, like the absolute performer and athlete that she is, right? She kind of puts on this game face, and it's a very clear physical illustration of what it looks like to have an internal boundary. What she's doing is she is separating, this is my internal experience, and that is for me. I know that I am safe because I'm going to go and handle this in 10 minutes or whenever it is, right? And so that way she's able to show up for the people that she's going to connect with, right? For these fans who are grieving, like she knows in that moment her role is to be present for someone else. So therefore, she places that internal boundary. She goes in, she has this conversation, she comes back out, and now she knows she's done this part of her job. It's safe to let some of that down, that guardedness. And now you can see it. She really gets into her body, right? She gets into her body, the tears start to come down, she slumps over. And so what she's doing is she's noticing the emotion. Two, she is practicing a healthy boundary. Do I need containment? Do I need space for expansion? She knows when to execute those pieces every single moment. Then she comes in, she lets herself feel it in her body, which artists are fantastic at this anyway, because they are always in the process in some way, shape, or form of metabolizing those emotions, and more specifically, those sensations. Okay. And then she's integrating it real time because her job isn't over, right? Her job isn't over. Like she is putting on a performance. She hasn't even done the 3.5 hour wild set. So she drops into her emotions. She drops into her body. She lets it up and out. This is why I call it up and out. She's allowing those stress cycles to complete in the way that they weren't able to a moment ago. And then she kind of completes it. You can see her body calm just a little bit, like the shaking sort of stops, the tears sort of stop. And she has this moment where she says, I exist in a very, I can't remember exactly how she phrases it, but an odd reality where, I have to go feel my feelings and then put on a pop star performance, right? Like this insane concert performance, whatever it is. And I think that it is intense. And hers certainly is in this extreme of extreme of extreme, right? But this is also the reality is I will have a meeting with a client, I'll talk with someone, and they will share whatever it is they're going through, whatever it is they're processing. And sometimes it's pretty heavy. And then the last 5, 10 minutes of our meeting, our session, the even like the retreats toward the end, right? It's about like coming back up so then I can put this boundary back in place because then I need to walk into this meeting over here and go close a 6-figure deal, right? The stakes are insane. And if you keep this internalized belief of losing control is somehow going to negatively affect outcomes, results, relationships, then you are self-sabotaging before you even get the chance to try something different, right? What Taylor does is she is allowing her nervous system to complete the stress cycle, right? Our nervous systems, they are a biological part of our bodies that is meant to keep us safe. It is not healthy to not allow that stress cycle to start. And it started anytime there's a big feeling, right? Like it is literally the stimulus is interpreted as a stress, whether that is a belief, an emotion, or like a physical stressor. There's something in our environment that is causing us danger, right? This could also be my daughter, I and my son, actually, for that matter. My kiddos, they're toddlers, right? And they're just, God, they're brilliant. I love them. They're so smart and courageous, and that's a whole other thing. I just think they're like the coolest people ever. But my Lanta, as my daughter would say, they have this like whiny voice that they get into, and I respond to it every single time. So what do they do if they cannot get and hold my attention in the way that they want to? They bust out the whiny voice because they're very smart. And my body interprets that stimulus as an absolute threat to my entire life. Okay. Like my heart rate takes off and I am taken back in time, right? Like my childhood was gnarly. And so there were several moments within which there were these moments of I need to be safe and I'm not safe. And this person keeps coming at me, whatever it is, right? And so my nervous system is pulled back in time. This is like the definition of a trigger. It's interpreting this toddler trying to get my attention, which it is their psychological task to remain in connection with a caregiver, right? They don't care if you're overstimulated, and they are not meant to care if you're overstimulated. Their nervous system's job is to get mom or dad's attention at whatever cost it takes, right? Even if that means I'm going to drive them up like a wall for a half second. So I'm interpreting this as a threat. My body goes into response, okay? In the same way that Taylor sort of has this embodied reaction of like, ooh, I think she's even like laying down at the beginning. She's like, hi, I'm like freaking out, right? I'm super anxious, she's fidgety, she's moving, you can tell, right? Versus, well, and this is the point, right? Is like your nervous system is trying to keep you safe. It says, hey, this thing hurt last time. Let's move away from it. And so therefore, we are going to somehow seek resolution. If you let your nervous system complete the stress response and you can stay in those sensations, the average amount of time that it will take you to actually resolve that stress response is 90 seconds. 90 seconds is all you need to feel the emotion, integrate it, and then return to task. Okay. This is what Taylor just did so beautifully. Okay. And so here is what I want you to really take away from this is that the most dangerous performer isn't the emotionless one. It is the one who knows how to feel and still move forward. This is what makes you a weapon. This is what propels you into the upper extreme of whatever project it is that you are doing, and it keeps you there sustainably without losing the integrity of the rest of your life, without your workout suffering, without your relationships with your children or your partner suffering, without your purpose and connection to life. But if you put those feelings in a box and you do not address them, then you absolutely are going to see all of these areas over here suffering because you are by nature living in a dysregulated state. Okay. So I want to address why it is that high achieving women fear this, right? They were taught, and I want you to write these things down. Okay. You were taught that emotions were unsafe from an early age. Okay. Therefore, you move into a place of performance where you put on a smile and you become agreeable and you take the client out for drinks because that's what you're supposed to do, because that's what the women in the office do, right? You sit down and you have a coffee with this team member and you sugarcoat the way that you need to give feedback, whatever it is, whatever it is. You move into this place of performance, which by definition is putting on a show, and you don't know how to get out of there. And what happens even worse from that is that like that suppression then is rewarded. Okay. So putting it in a box, well, great. Now your CEO and your founder, they're all really happy because you hit your numbers. In fact, you doubled them. Okay. Not only did you hit this KPI, but like, hey, we're actually going to hand you this extra project as well because you're just doing a really great job. Well, this reminds me of the same attention that I received as a child growing up. And that feels good. That feels healthy. That feels familiar, right? So we do it again, and we do it again, and we do it again because it's an unconscious response. And then you end up 15, 20, 30 years down the road and you realize, oh my gosh, during this time, I've been hitting my numbers. I've also been neglecting my children because I didn't have the capacity to sustain both. Okay. So I want to unpack here as we're wrapping up the difference between emotional suppression and emotional integration, especially at the speed within which I see it happening for high performing women. Okay. Suppression is going to look like powering through consistently. I'm not saying in the moment, right? Let us look back to Taylor. There are moments when she's like, all right, game face, here we go, right? She also knows on the other end of it, I get to come and feel my feelings. I'm going to get to sit with this. So when you are consistently powering through, this is a red flag of suppression. When you are intellectualizing your feelings, here's what I mean by this, okay? This happens a ton when you are intellectualizing your feelings. Guys, I want you to associate, and I want you to write this down. A feeling is a sensation in your body. We interpret those feelings, and that creates a thought. But a lot of times, I will ask women that I am working with, certainly I will ask them, what are you feeling in your body? What do you feel about what you just said? And they'll say, I feel like it's just, blah, 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 blah. That's a thought. If you say, I feel like, I want that to be like your red flag. Okay. Like will always be followed by a thought. That is the definition of intellectualizing your feelings. So the idea behind actually feeling your feelings is like actually getting into the body, finding a sensation, recognizing you even have a body in the first place. Okay. Suppression, a sign of that is that you say, I feel like, and then you talk for like 20 or 30 or 45 or 50 minutes. Okay. At that point, you are not in your body. You are absolutely not in your body. That's a big one for high performing women, probably you, if you're listening to this, because this is where you're rewarded. Your mind is your asset, right? Suppression also looks like staying composed at all costs. So I don't care how people see me. Again, let us think to Taylor Swift. There are moments when you bet she is going to go on and she's going to put the best performance of her life on. because she cares about her fans and she knows how to do her job. There are other moments behind the scenes. There are other moments in rehearsal where she has a moment. She has several moments. And in that moment, you can see that she does not care how she is perceived because she knows this environment is characteristic of being safe, right? If you are highly invested in staying composed at all costs across all environment, this is a red flag. And delayed crashes. So this is a big one. People will often listen to this and they're like, I don't struggle with this. And I ask them, okay, do you have a consistent cycle of go, 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 and then crash? And then I come back and I push, 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 push. And then I'm laid up in bed watching Netflix for 3 days and I can't move. And then I come back and I have to hit my numbers and I have to hit my projects. And so I'm jumping on calls and then I crash again, right? This is a sign that you are having issues actually integrating your emotions and you're really flirting in more of this emotional suppression end versus integration. What integration looks like is having a feeling without completely spiraling. Okay. Meaning I can be in my body and I can breathe in through my nose, out through my mouth consistently. I can stay with the sensation. Okay. Naming that emotion quickly for what it is. I feel sad. I feel anxious. I feel whatever it is, and I can close my eyes and put all of my attention onto the sensation in my body. Okay. You're also going to start to see if you are in this healthy space of emotional integration that you are able to return to clarity a lot quicker. Right. Like truly, there's a point in time when, because my retreats, so retreats are meant to go and sort of flush the nervous system a little bit, depending on what happened early on in childhood. It really is to give you a new baseline. And it's really incredible to see on the other end of it because you end up with a system, you end up with a revamped, so to speak, like nervous system, right? So on the other end of it, these women metabolize so quick. They integrate so quick. And it is the coolest thing to see, right? Because they can notice, oh, I'm having a feeling. Let me go plug myself into an appropriate container so I can feel it. I can deal with it. I can let it out. And then, poof, I'm like on with my 12 o'clock meeting, right? They move quick because it's a system, it's a set of steps, right? But the other thing that you see is sustainable output. And this is where, honestly, as you are moving through your healing journey, as you're moving through whatever, things get really boring. Once you, especially you have gotten to the root of the core issues that you're working through, whether that is maybe it is sustained performance. Maybe it is having the confidence to stay grounded in your vision and what you're doing. Maybe it is connecting with your children more, right? Once you go through, you flush this stuff out, you address it at the root for where it started, it doesn't come back, right? You may have little moments, but at that point, you know how to flush, you know how to stay connected. Life gets really boring in a really healthy way. And your nervous system actually has to take time to acclimate to this new baseline. But what you see is just a very sustainable output, right? We don't have to live in chaos. We don't have to live perpetually exhausted. That is a choice that we are making. It is a choice that you are making. Or you could choose to address these issues in a way that is going to give you sustainable output, right? Integration, feeling your emotions, knowing how to do it, how, why, where, is not softness. It is not messy, although it can be messy. That is speed. That is precision. That is accuracy, right? So, if you're in this space and you're listening and you're like, okay, great. Now I see that I am on the suppression end, and that's great that Taylor can do it, but I can't. Wrong. Let's talk through a tool that I want you to be able to pull out. Let's talk through some steps. Specifically, I'm going to give you a few steps in the up and out framework that I teach my clients. Okay. The first is being able to recognize that an emotion has come online that is triggering you, it's hitting the boulder. It's going to start getting in your way. Okay. I'm going to give you my top 2 signs that this has happened. So the first is you move into all or nothing thinking. particularly as a high performer. I call her Dr. McGeehan, like Dr. McGeehan comes out. Okay. Dr. McGeehan comes out, and I can almost feel this like metaphorical blazer that I put on. And I jump into like a God complex when I am triggered and I have this emotion. And it is my way or the highway. And I'm going to explain to you the research and the literature and neuroscience behind why I am right. And my answer is the only answer there is, all or nothing thinking. Okay. This is another way of saying control. When you feel these things start to come out, that is your nervous system ringing the bell saying, "Ooh, there is something here. There's something here that we're not happy with." Okay. The other is you can't slow down or you can't turn your brain off. And I will say these are very specific to my clientele. These are very specific to you if you're listening to this, to the high performers of the world, guys. Our psychological defenses are primed and supported by whatever we are rewarded with in our environment. What are high performing women rewarded with? They are rewarded with hard work, hitting their numbers, and being correct, having control of a room, right? So if you find yourself in a space where you're like, I'm not actually being productive, and yet I can't stop moving, this is another sign that you have run into a psychological boulder, okay? And that your system, like there's something here that needs to come up and out. Step one is awareness, okay? With those two flags. Step two is notice the sensations in your body. Notice I'm saying sensation and not feeling. I'm like, listen to me. I want you to think in terms of sensation. Is your heart rate picking up? Are you feeling heat in your body? Is there constriction happening in your chest? Is there a desire to like move your body, right? What is this? That is step two, is finding the sensation. Okay. Step three is I want you to give it a color. And there's like, we could go way deeper into this, but I'm not going to like a full-blown workshop today. So step one, realize you've hit a boulder. Step two, find that sensation. There's an actual physiological response in your body. Find it. Step three, close your eyes, put all of your attention on that sensation and give it a color. And then I want you to see if you can breathe it out through your mouth. Okay. So really breathing in through your nose and then out through your mouth. And noticing what happens in your body, specifically in your body, not in your head. This only works if you are able to metabolize the feeling and not jump into your head, okay? So these are your 4 steps, right? It's about awareness, identification, really placing your attention on that sensation, and then helping it to move up and out. This is a way of getting in there and actually leveraging what your nervous system and your biology naturally wants to do anyway, especially if you are in a moment where maybe you need to come on stage and perform for a bajillion people, okay? Like our queen, Taylor. Or maybe you need to go and be present for your child. Or maybe you're jumping on a sales call and you really need to close this deal. That person sitting across from you is going to know if you are suppressing because you are by definition dysregulated. Versus if you learn how to regulate and integrate with precision and accuracy, that gives you a turnaround time of 90 seconds. Okay. Alrighty, guys. I hope that today's episode was helpful. I had so much fun. I will be back to chat more about Taylor Swift. I really, really enjoyed her documentary. But again, if you are the woman who has been told to not feel her feelings, I want you to know that this actually does not make you a messy human being. This is actually going to make you a much sharper weapon, just to be quite frank, if you learn how to do it effectively. I'll see you on the next one. Alrighty, friend, that is all for today's episode of the Aligned Powerhouse podcast. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And do me a favor, if this episode resonated, I want you to share it with another powerhouse woman in your life who is ready to lead and love from a place of self-trust. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a quick rating or review. It really does help more women find this work. New episodes drop every week. Until then, lead with self-trust and let yourself be seen.